Okay, we'll call the March 2nd Planning Commission meeting to order. The first matter of business is the roll call.
Chair Clow,
Present.
Vice Chair Lawrence.
She's excused.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith,
Present.
Commissioner Faulkner.
She's excused.
Thank you. Commissioner Lucero,
Here.
Commissioner Morondo,
Here.
Commissioner Pava.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. The next is the Pledge of Allegiance, and Commissioner Lucero, could you lead that, please? Okay, we'll next move on to the agenda. Does staff have changes to the agenda?
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we have two changes. So item one, we would like to postpone until the next meeting on April 6th. It still needs to be introduced to governing body. And then we would like to move staff communications up to immediately after approval of findings and conclusions so that Daniel Alvarado can give you all a brief presentation on the Land Development Code update.
That sounds fine. Any commissioners have any changes to the agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Lucero,
Yes.
Commissioner Morondo,
Yes.
Commissioner Pava. The motion has been approved.
Thank you. Now we'll move to the approval of the February 2nd, 2023 minutes. Does staff have any changes to those minutes? Does any commissioner have any changes to the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Lucero,
Yes.
Commissioner Morondo,
Yes.
Commissioner Pava.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Now we'll move on to the approval of findings of facts and conclusions of law. The first one is case number 2022-6015, LKS Multifamily Apartment Complex Development Plan. Are there any changes to those findings and conclusions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Lucero,
Yes.
Commissioner Morondo,
Yes.
Commissioner Pava.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
The next findings and conclusions are case number 2022-6141. That's 2863 Rufina Development Plan. Any changes to those findings and conclusions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Lucero,
Yes.
Commissioner Morondo,
Yes.
Commissioner Pava.
Yes. Yes.
The motion has been approved.
And finally, there's findings and conclusions on case number 2022-6136. That's 4250 Cerritos Road Residence Inn Development Plan. Any changes to those findings and conclusions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucero?
Yes.
Commissioner Morondo?
Yes.
Commissioner Pava?
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
No, there's no old business, so we'll move on to new business. The first matter that we are hearing is case number 2022. 62.
Chair Clow,
I'm
we're
sorry.
going to do
Oh,
staff
you're
communications.
right.
Thanks, yeah.
Okay, Dan, sorry.
Members of the commission, can you hear me? Okay. Thank you, Chair Clow. Yes, so we're going to do a brief presentation about the Land Development Code update. We had our kickoff week a couple weeks ago and wanted to share with you what we did and what the next steps are. So first of all, can we just relish in the our branding, which has finally been established? I think it's quite nice, good colors, good. That this is going to be our project logo and everything. So I think it looks really great. That was a team effort, so we love that. So I think everybody on the commission is familiar with the project, but I'll briefly go over the project team in case just to for the public and members of the commission. As you know, I'm the project manager for the Development Code update. There's Maggie, Heather, and Jason are on the team as well as my supervisors, and then on the consultant side, we have Clarion Consultants. They're out of Denver. The project manager and director of Clarion is Matt Goebel. We also have Elizabeth Garvin and Jenny Baker. They were all present here in person for the kickoff week to conduct the interviews. We also had Holly White, who's the person who put together all our branding and will be doing all of our graphics for engagement as well as the code itself. So she's going to have a big role in making that code more usable. So just briefly to talk about Clarion, they've been around for 30 years and they're focused on code in particular, but they have lots of different disciplines: planners, attorneys, designers. They are, an industry leader in land use development codes, but they also do comprehensive plans and all those kind of traditional planning activities. So they really are a great asset for us. And just you can see all of the different projects around the country, but most notably they just in Albuquerque's land development code is in Albuquerque. So the project timeline, I don't know if you can see my cursor. No, you cannot. So we're in phase 1, and stop me if you need a refresher on the different phases of the code, but I'm hoping that at this point, the commission is familiar with the project. So in phase 1, we are focusing on project orientation, issues identification, and we're moving on to what Jason's doing there. We're going to have the annotated outline that we'll all review from phase 1 and then phase 1 adoption. So there's going to be a phase 1 adoption and a phase 2 adoption. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. So as you know, phase 1 is going to focus on housekeeping, structural issues with the code, creating a foundation upon which that we can go to phase 2, which is going to be the meaty stuff in the phase that we're calling promoting key standards. But also in phase 1, we're focusing strongly on public engagement and gathering as much data and input as possible about what's going on with the code and how we can improve it. To give a little bit more detail, this is an outline of the calendar of phase 1, and I can tell that we can't quite read that, but just to show you where we're at, where that red circle is right after the kickoff week. The Clarion team is putting together a facilitation and summary report, which is essentially a report of what they heard in all the different interviews and public engagement from that kickoff week thus far. And that's going to be a kind of our first deliverable from the consultant team, which should be coming to us in the next couple of days. And then we'll have a public draft by the end of the month. This is more of a working document. It's the public is welcome to read it, but it's really for our record keeping, and it's kind of the first step towards the next big project, which is kind of the annotated review of the code and what is really the issues that we've identified in context of the code. And that's going to come over the summer. And so our next big deliverable is at the end of the summer, at which time we'll have a annotated review of the code, an outline of things that they've seen that are applicable for phase one. So yeah, I'm just going to go quickly through what we did at the kickoff week. We had a great driving tour and walking tour. So this is the week of the big snow. A couple weeks ago, the city shut down several days in a row, which presented some challenges, but we still showed up and we got all of our interviews done. And we did our driving tour in a blizzard, which was interesting. The team here can attest to the increasingly treacherous conditions. It went from blue skies to whiteout in the course of a couple hours. But we did get across most of the city and explored all the different major neighborhoods and development areas in the city with the project team, so they get their sea legs, so to speak. This picture is from our walking tour on Tuesday, I believe it was, which was with some of the staff, and when we got to walk around downtown, even though it was quite snowy. So the interviews, we did 3 days of in-person interviews. We interviewed over 60 individuals in sets of 1 hour group interviews. Some of the commissioners were a part of that. We also had all of the city leadership, representatives of the Boards of Commission. We couldn't have all of the Boards of Commission because that would create a quorum, but we had representatives of each relevant board. We had all the department heads, local planners, engineers, attorneys, former staff, including folks like Noah Burke, who know the code really well, the development community and local community associations and organizations. So we had a great first kind of stab at getting to know everybody who works with the code, and Clarion, I think, gathered a ton of data from those interviews. So that was great. That's not where I meant to go next. Well, I guess that was okay. Sorry. I thought there was another slide there, but anyway, so I wanted to, the next steps are quarterly presentations to the Planning Commission, and more as requested. But I think we've talked previously about at least quarterly presentations to you all, and we also be having working groups that will be kind of the fundamental day-to-day connection between the project team and the public. We'll have a technical working group as well as a kind of a citizen working group, and maybe others. We're still finessing what that's going to look like, and we'll be setting those up over the next couple of weeks. And we do anticipate at least a few representatives from the boards and commissions to be part of those working groups. Also, of course, we have our project website where you can access all our project materials, and the public can provide feedback through our surveys and see all the updates and our calendar. Other opportunities are going to include, I think there was one more slide. I think it must be hidden. I had a slide about our virtual open house. That's what it was missing. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I see what's going on here. Okay, I knew there was something missing. Okay, virtual open house. We did want to also point this out. We had the virtual open house scheduled for the Wednesday of the kickoff week. However, it was snowed out because of the closure of the city, but we moved to virtual on a last minute, and it was actually quite a success, considering the situation. We had over 90 attendees. Clarion gave their presentation, which they had planned to give. And then we heard from the public, a kind of a more of a listening session rather than a kind of open discussion as you might have in an open house situation. And we heard lots of questions like about the public process, affordable housing, design standards, things you might expect. But we are rescheduling that open house for the 6th, April 12th at 6 p.m. I don't know if it's quite official yet, but we've marked that on our calendars. We should be making the announcement soon. The image here is just an example of what one of the boards would have been in the open house, and we'll have these big printed out boards in Spanish and English where we can interact with the public and discuss what the project entails. Okay, so that's the conclusion of my presentation. I'd love to hear from you guys and any questions. Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Commissioner Pava?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Alvarado, can you very briefly provide an overview of how the development code update will coordinate with the general plan update? I mean, if the general plan is updated subsequently and yet the development code needs to be designed to implement the general plan, how is that going to work?
Of course, thank you, Commissioner Pava, Chair Clow. So as we've discussed, there's going to be 3 phases to the code update. Phase 1 is the foundations phase, where we'll be talking about or working on housekeeping, hygiene, as we're calling it, and creating a strong foundation for the code. So these are structural changes that will hopefully make the code overall more usable, but we're not going to touch some of the more substantive things, which are, density standards, design standards, road standards, these kind of things that are kind of meaty topics or substantive topics as we're talking about. That'll be in phase 2. But around that same time, we'll be kicking off our general plan update process. And I think we alluded to in the agenda, we're getting ready to introduce the resolution for the general plan to the governing body in the next meeting. And then once the resolution is approved, if and when it's approved, which is the next after the meeting after that, we'll be able to put out an RFP for that general plan. Then we'll have the RFP out. We'll hopefully have a consultant on in the subsequent months after that. So, this first phase is about 1.5 years, 18 months. Then phase 2 is another possibly 2 years. And around that time, the general plan will be going on. We'll be doing engagement for the general plan, and the 2 teams will start to work together and develop crossovers. And I think the goal eventually is to have the outcome of the general plan inform phase 3 of the code rewrite, which is implementing all of the things that are identified in the general plan that need a change in the code. So maybe in a perfect world, this schedule would have been flipped, but this is how things were developed in our city process. So we are trying to make it work so that the general plan can kind of come in around phase 3 of the land development code and establish goals that can be then implemented through the code.
Thanks for further clarifying that, Mr. Alvarado. I think it's just very important that the general plan, although will be adopted by a resolution, is going to be consistent with, I should say, that the development code will be consistent with the general plan. So I appreciate that.
I couldn't quite catch the last thing you said there, but thank you.
No, I just appreciate the clarifications. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Dan, could you provide us with copies of your slides?
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll move on to new business and case number 2022-6202, which is Windmill Hill at Las Placitas compound variance. I'm sorry. Next one. It's case number, well, for the record, that matter has been postponed until April 6th. Okay, now we're moving on to case number 2022-6271, which is 507 and 511 Paseo de Peralta Development Plan,
Madam Chair, it's I apologize, 2023.
2023, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Chair Clow, if I may,
Yes.
I'm going to recuse myself from this case because I have family members who live very close to it. So Frank Rebelit is going to take my place and I will be back after this case.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, my name is Frank Rubelid. I'm an assistant city attorney for the city of Santa Fe. And I'm pleased to meet everybody tonight.
Well, it's nice meeting you and thank you for attending.
Okay, I was going to spell my name for the record, but I think Melissa knows me quite well, so thank you.
Ready?
Lanny, you ready?
Good evening, Chair Clow, Commissioners. I'm here to present case 2023-6271, a development plan for 507 and 511 Paseo de Peralta, which includes 9 units on 0.56 acres in the BCD and R21 zoning districts. The applicant has complied with subsections 14-3.1E for pre-application conferences, 14-3.1F for early neighborhood notification procedures, and 14-3.1H for notice requirements. The Land Use Department recommends approval of the development plan subject to the conditions of approval in this report and all technical corrections in Exhibit A. One motion will be required in this case to either approve or deny the development plan for case 2023-6271, subject to conditions of approval and technical corrections in the report. There are 10 conditions of approval in the staff report. The technical corrections are found in Exhibit A. Following standard practice, staff will provide the applicant redline comments, and the applicant will make any necessary changes to comply with the conditions of approval and technical corrections, and submit the corrected plan sheets to the case manager to collect staff signatures. Should the Planning Commission approve the development plan shall be recorded prior to issuance of vertical construction permits. Staff does require one change to the technical corrections in Exhibit A. Under condition number 41, staff requests proof and certification of the structural stability of the concrete block retaining wall and CMU retaining walls along the north side of the property from the structural engineer. This should include retaining walls along the north and east sides of the property. Staff requests this change as part of the approval of the development plan. .507 Paseo de Peralta is 0.18 acres and is zoned BCD and is in the Marcy Street subdistrict. It is an abandoned parking lot with a retaining wall along the north property line. 511 Paseo de Peralta is 0.37 acres and is zoned R21. It's a vacant lot with a portion of a building, vegetation, and retaining walls to the north and east of the property. Both lots are located in the downtown and east side historic district. Current design of the development plan was approved by the Historic Districts Review Board in 2018. They have had 2 subsequent one-year extensions. The HDRB approval expires in June of 2023. The proposed site includes 4 residential units in a single 2-story building on the 507 Paseo de Peralta side, which will consist of 4,919 square feet of roofed area, There will be 5 residential units in 2 two-story buildings on the 511 Paseo de Peralta site and will consist of 7,774 square feet of roofed area. Combined, the overall roofed area will be 12,693 square feet with 9 residential units. The site design does include open space and amenities such as landscaped courtyards and a swimming pool. Parking requirements for each of the 2 zoning districts are different. The BCD requires 1 parking space per unit, where the R21 district requires 2 parking spaces per unit. Combined, this is 14 required parking spaces. 8 spaces are planned on the BCD lot and 6 on the R21 lot. This is a total of 14 spaces as required. A shared parking agreement is provided as part of the development plan and is found in Exhibit F. Per SFCC 14-7.2 F2, properties zoned R21 must request approval from the Planning Commission for a density greater than 10 units per acre. This development in the R21 portion proposes the equivalent of 13 units per acre. The average density of the area is 12 units per acre. The applicant and staff provided responses to the factors that the Planning Commission shall consider before approving this increase in maximum density. These responses are available on pages 8 through 10 of the staff report. Staff has concluded that all development has met the approval criteria. Therefore, staff recommends approval. SFCC section 14-3.8 governs the authority, procedures, and restrictions for development plans. Thank you. Staff, including members of the design review team, are available for questions tonight.
Do any commissioners have any preliminary questions of staff? If not, we'll move on to the applicant's presentation.
I am going to go ahead and swear you in. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Braden Furry. My address is P.O. Box 238, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87504. Madam Chair and Commissioners, thank you for your time tonight. As Lanny has pointed out, we are looking to put two developments on 2 adjacent lots in the downtown area. Each building will be 2 stories tall with a total of 9 units between the 2. There's the address at 507 Paseo de Peralta is the BCD, and 511 is R21. We have stuck to all the requirements for both zoning locations for both buildings. There is the request for an increase in the R21 building at 511. We're within all requirements for height limitations, size limitations. We are providing above and beyond what's required for open space. Parking is being taken care of between the 2 lots combined. We do have a parking agreement between the 2 lots in place, signed by the owner. Basically, what we're wanting to do is take 2 lots that are in the downtown area and infill with construction that allows easy access to the downtown area, which we hope is bringing more walkable amenities to the residents instead of having to possibly move somewhere else farther out, drive in, park, to use the same businesses and entertainment facilities. Other than that, Lanny's presentation kind of covered most everything that we've got. So any questions that you have, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions from the commission? Preliminary questions? Commissioner Morondo?
Madam Chair, yeah, thank you. Could you summarize the historic board's findings when the case went before for approval, if there were any conditions?
For historic,
Yes.
we were just limited to the standard historic requirements. We have to coloring of the stucco fits in with the surrounding areas. We are using true divided lights at the correct or below percentages between glazing and solid walls.
Apart from the historic code, though, were there conditions of approval?
No, there was nothing else. I see. I'm sorry. I see.
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Pava?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening.
Leaving.
Question, these are condominiums are intended to be constructed as in condominium ownership, is that?
Correct. Yes.
Are there going to be drawn up covenants, restrictions that deal with the issue of short-term rental of these condominiums? Let me put the question another way. The condominiums are intended for ownership, occupancy, but is there any prohibition or restriction on these being rented out as short-term rentals?
As of right now, I don't have an answer for that. That would be determinant on the HOA association once those bylaws and covenants are drawn up.
Okay, so there will be an HOA and that's how that will be
Correct. Yes.
addressed.
Yes.
That makes sense. Given that there are 14 spaces total, is there any formal or informal arrangement made for overflow parking, or will it just become a matter of hunting for parking spaces in the vicinity, Paseo and the bank parking lot across the street and that sort of thing?
Yeah, unfortunately, with the size of the two lots, we are only able to provide what is required, the minimum required. So yes, any additional parking would have to be within the area.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Smith?
Chair Clow, did I understand in your initial response to my colleague here that the historic board did enforce color code and consistency of hue of the buildings? And
Correct. Yes.
thank you.
And I might add, to answer your question, there was one stipulation. There is an existing rock wall on the 511 property. We cannot do anything with that. So that is staying in place. We're not adding to it. We're not touching it. We will be constructing everything behind it. Sorry if that came to my mind.
Any other questions? If not, we'll open the matter up for public comment. Is anyone here from the public?
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Stephanie Beninatto, P O Box 1601, Santa Fe, New Mexico. I have not really studied this project. I'm assuming it's the parking lot over near where Cliff T used to be, over across from Century Bank, diagonally across at that intersection with Agua Fria and Paseo. No, where is this parking lot that we're talking about? Sorry. I'm just concerned about the not having enough parking, because we can't just say that 14 cars are going to be there, because people come and go, they have gas. And I also wonder about, it's nice to say you'll put it in the HOA documents about short-term rentals, but what if they decide that they want to have short-term rentals? Then you don't have a condition of development in there. And I also wonder if, like are they required to have affordable housing in these condos or not? And again, that's another question that I haven't seen really addressed here. Thank you.
Is anyone else here from the public to make comment on this matter? If not, Maggie, is there anyone on Zoom?
Chair Clow, I don't see any hands raised on Zoom. So if anyone on Zoom would like to speak, please raise your hand.
Okay, given that there's no one on Zoom wanting to speak, we'll close public comment. And I'll open it up to the commission for comments. Commissioner Smith.
Chair Cloud, could I ask one of the folks from the staff to respond to the questions that were just raised about short-term rentals and affordable housing, whoever the right person is?
That would be me. So there are only 9 units, which means that they do not meet the requirement for required affordable housing. It has to be 10 or more units.
Right.
So there will not be, it's not a requirement for them to have affordable housing.
But they're paying a fee, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and the issue of I saw that in the report, so I apologize because I wasn't putting the two together. And in terms of short-term rentals, I was going to pose that question to the city attorney or whoever is the right person. It strikes me that if the point of the development is to bring housing downtown, then short-term rentals are not congruent with that purpose, unless you're talking about people from someplace else being able to walk to the plaza once we clean it up. So is there any, what is the legal, if any, means we have to not leave it to the homeowners?
Madam Chair and Commissioner Smith, I know that there's a whole process for applying. There's a whole separate process by which if somebody wants to convert a unit, and I do most of my work in the historic districts. And of course, this is in the historic district. They have to go through a whole process of presenting the application to convert an existing unit into short-term rentals. And I don't think there has ever been any kind of application on this case, and whether or not somebody could do that. Let me back up a little bit. When they submit an application to convert a unit into short-term housing, they have to go through the whole notification process. They have to post a sign and they have to send a registered mailing to residents in the area. And so I don't think we can confidently say that won't be done, but I am saying that there is a whole process that has to be followed in order for the short-term housing to be approved.
Well, thank you for that. I think my question included another, is there a device that the city has that would be able to preemptively comment on a development like this and deny short-term rental as an option? There's not.
And, and so not that I know of, and I see Ms. Moore and Mr. Klug also shaking their heads no, that you can in perpetuity put any kind of restriction on property. Presumably any property that's built if the use is going to be changed, it has to go through the whole permitting process. And planning, zoning, historic board, that sort of thing.
Any other comments from commissioners? Commissioner Pava.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I read in the staff report something about a pool. Really? I looked at the site plans and whatnot.
Yes, it's in the
All the-
courtyard on the 511 Paseo de Peralta site. So it's right in the center of the buildings.
Wow. Okay, just was really curious about that. That caught my eye because I've seen prior to this, there was the development proposed to a previous planning commission. And it was much more massive, the building and whatnot. So I was just kind of curious about how this is going to lay out. And I did look at the elevation. So thank you for clarifying that. So kind of interesting, certainly an amenity. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Montan. Renato.
Madam Chair, thank you. Just as a general comment, for the applicant, it's nice to see the general plan having concealed parking the way it does. I think it's very innovative and overall makes the street really improves the streetscape. So I appreciated that in the application.
Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Commissioner Pava.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. In the matter of case 2023-6271, 507 and 511 Paseo de Peralta Development Plan. Motion for approval with the conditions of approval as outlined in the staff report.
Second.
Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Lucero,
Yes.
Commissioner Morondo,
Yes.
Commissioner Pava.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to case number 2022-4942, which is 2339 Bolt Up Road rezoning.
And Madam Chair, I need to
You need to leave and then
Pat
Patricia
Figoli
needs
back
to
in.
come back.
Okay.
And I think so we'll,
Okay, I'll go get her.
and Dan is presenting on Zoom, correct?
Yeah, Chair Clout and Dan, I just want to make sure the screens in the room have gone black. So I just want to make sure when you're presenting that they are going to show your presentation. So if you don't, do you want to try to share your screen, Dan?
Yeah.
We'll see if it comes up on the screen out here.
You see the screen?
And yes, it's appearing. Thank you.
Let me know when it's time to go.
Dan, please go ahead.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the commission, this is case 2022-4942, 2339 Bolt Off Road rezoning. Shelley Espinosa, owner, requesting rezoning for chapter 14 SFCC 1987 1435 rezonings from R1, 1 dwelling unit per acre, to R2, 2 dwelling units per acre for a 1.41 acre lot. The property is located within the Suburban Archaeological Review District. So, Madam Chair, members of the commission, this case appeared before you already once
And it was discovered that the applicant did not meet one of the criteria needed to move forward to the governing body. That was 1431H, the notice requirements for chapter 14. The applicant has since complied with 1431H as well as 1431F, early neighborhood notification meetings, and 1431E, pre-application meetings, and is now operating as an owner agent as opposed to having an agent. So that is why this is appearing before this body again in a de novo manner. Staff is recommending that the planning commission should recommend the governing body approve case 2022-4942. One motion will be required for this case. Approve or deny case 2022-4942, request for rezoning of approximately 1.41 acres. So I'm going to summarize this because this body's already heard this case once. In the aerial and in attachment E7, you'll see that the property is vacant with a little bit of the Arroyo de los Tramisas flood zone encroaching a little bit on north end of the property. And there's an easement traverses the property to the south, providing access to the neighbor to the east. The property runs along Boltoff Road. The property was annexed in 2009 as part of Phase 1, Area 16 of the city-initiated annexation plan, and that's Ordinance 2009-51. The property was brought in as low density. The future land use map identifies this as 1 to 3 dwelling units per acre. And for the most part, it's in the central point of that whole future land use map of low density. The zoning for the property is R1, which is the default zoning when it is brought in for annexation. The property to the north is R2, which was zoned in 2002 as part of another project. So the applicant is asking to take the boundary of that R2 and extend it downward, southward, to incorporate their lot. So with regard to the findings relative to the rezoning in your memo or the report, you'll find in table 2 all of the criteria. In criteria 1, only one of the following conditions have to exist. There was a mistake in the original zoning, which staff did not find any. There has been a change in the surrounding areas, altering the character of the neighborhood to such an extent as to justify the change in zoning. While there has been one zoning case since the annexation, staff did not agree with the applicant's response to this question. The applicant did not address this issue. We did not find that there was enough change in that area that actually justifies any zoning. However, for criteria 3, a different use category is more advantageous to the community as articulated in the general plan or other adopted city plans. Staff did agree with the applicant's response. Proposed rezoning from R1 to R2 facilitates the development of either a 2-lot subdivision or a second dwelling unit. The request is consistent with the general plan policies that promote infill development and optimize the use of existing infrastructure to reduce urban sprawl. Staff emphasizes that regardless of the number of houses or lots proposed, it is essential to consider the general plan's principles, such as to ensure accessibility, fairness, equity, and character, and accessory dwelling units. Getting beeps here. The higher density promotes smaller homes and subdivided lots being key components for creating efficient use of infrastructure and providing opportunities to provide housing for all income segments. So we do believe that the applicant's response provided sufficient information to address criteria 1435CA. For criteria 2, all of the rezoning requirements of chapter 14 have been met. Yes. The applicant's submittal is complete application required by chapter 14 37C, and staff finds that this criterion has been met. For criteria 3, the rezoning is consistent with the applicable policies of the general plan, including the future land use map. Staff agreed with many of the general plan themes and policies for the change from R1 to R2, and that should just be there's an error there. It's not residential, very low density. It's just low density. Staff's review also acknowledges that the future land use map allows for R2 zoning and that the request for R2 zoning is not inconsistent with the global residential density for the area. Staff finds that the applicant's response provided sufficient information to address criteria 1435 CC. Get to criteria 4. The amount of land proposed for rezoning and the proposed use for the land is consistent with city policies regarding the provisions of urban land sufficient to meet the amount, rate, geographic location of the growth of the city. Staff agrees with the applicant on this response to subsection 1435 CD. Additionally, this section prohibits a rezoning if the rezoning will affect an area less than 2 acres unless adjusting boundaries between districts. The applicant's request is to adjust the R2 district boundary adjoining the property to the north to include this property. So it's well within this section allowances. Staff finds that the applicant's response provides sufficient information to address criteria 1435 CD. In criteria 5, the existing and proposed infrastructure such as the streets, system, sewer, water lines, and public facilities such as fire stations, parks will be able to accommodate the impacts of the proposed development. Again, staff agreed with the applicant's response. The subject property is currently served by existing roadways and public water and sewer infrastructure. The applicant's referenced exhibits can be found in attachment F. And staff finds that the applicant's response provided sufficient information to address criteria 1435 CE. Finally, we get to criteria 6. Unless the proposed change is consistent with the applicable general plan policies, the Planning Commission and the governing body shall not recommend approve or recommend or approve or rezoning, the practical effect of which is to allow uses or change in character significantly different from or inconsistent with the prevailing use and character of the area, affect an area less than 2 acres, unless adjusting boundaries between districts, benefit one or few landowners at the expense of the surrounding landowners or general public. Again, the staff did agree with the applicant's response. The prevailing use and character of the area is generally residential. The density increase to R2 is consistent with the density for the area. Adjusting district boundaries to include land less than 2 acres is permitted, and a rezoning from R1 to R2 is consistent with the uses and density of the surrounding neighborhood, and the subject property is currently served by existing roadways and public water and sewer infrastructure. So the applicant did have sufficient information to address criteria 1435 C2. And that pretty much ends the staff presentation. I can answer any questions.
Do any commissioners have preliminary questions of staff? Commissioner Palva.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Escobar, for all intents and purposes, is this a brand new de novo application for this rezoning? Even though we heard a case for a similar request back in June?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Commissioner Pava, that is correct. This the previous meeting and vote was nullified by the fact that the applicant failed to meet the notice criteria appropriately, so they started over.
Thank you. So we're looking at this with fresh eyes, so to speak. This is a brand new application.
But it's the same application. They just have a do-over. So it's as if you guys didn't vote yet.
Got it. Thank you.
Mr. Pava, Commissioner, if I may, yeah, this is the same case number, so it is a continuation of the same case. However, it's a new application. So it's the same property asking for the same thing, but some of the answers to the questions are different and some of the information is different. And the previous vote is void.
So follow-up question for Ms. Fagali then. So we have an application, it's the same request. There were some errors in the original submittal, and now we have a resubmittal that is in accordance with the process set forth in chapter 14.
Correct. The notice was not properly given the first time around. It has been properly given this time.
Thank you for that clarification.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Pava, I just want to clarify, there weren't errors in the case. The applicant has provided additional information.
Right. So when an applicant comes to the city and decides to withdraw the application and revise the application, there's no rules or requirements, restrictions about doing something like that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
In fact, the applicant was doing something correct, it would seem. Thank you.
Any other questions? We'll hear from the applicant.
Hi there. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Shelley Espinoza. My address is 27 Coyote Pass, Santa Fe. Closer? Okay. Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Thank you once again for listening to my presentation and going through this process with me. I want to thank Mr. Escobar and Ms. Moore for all their work on this case and realizing there was a snag, but we were able to work through this process together. I don't want to belabor this presentation by duplicating the documentation that's already been provided to you or Mr. Escobar's presentation. However, I would like to emphasize some key points. My application proposes rezoning from the R1 use category to R2 for an eventual lot split for myself and my family. This proposed rezoning is consistent with the longstanding general plan future land use designation of R1 to R3. My property is a little over 1.4 acres, a very large lot in my opinion. My request is not for any type of exemption. My proposal is allowable under city ordinance and is consistent with various general plan themes, including affordable housing, character, urban form. The general plan emphasizes that opportunities should be provided for housing for all income segments of all population in all areas of the city, while restricting the supply of large lot housing, which belongs in rural areas outside the city and not inside it. The general plan promotes strategies to achieve residential infill, including simple lot splits. Small subdivided lots and smaller homes help create efficient uses of already existing roads and utilities and reduces the need to build additional infrastructure. These strategies benefit the community by incrementally reducing pressure on urban sprawl. Opponents to this request cannot continue to object to the need of higher densities while large acreage inside the city is underutilized. And when so many, like my family, and perhaps yours, commute more than 2 hours a day to work in government and service jobs that benefit all of us here in Santa Fe. As we know, the affordability and availability of housing is out of reach for many, including seniors and young families. Resolution 2015-65, also known as a Residents' Bill of Rights, was created by community organizations composed of hundreds of members throughout the city. The resolution states, a resolution directing staff to seek solutions to Santa Fe's housing affordability crisis, specifically as related to gentrification, inequity, and the widening gap between rich and poor in Santa Fe. Providing a framework for housing and urban planning policy. Whereas housing is an anchor for stable, prosperous, and a just society. Whereas Santa Fe leads the nation with innovative and progressive housing policies and the governing body wishes to continue to build on this legacy. Whereas despite local, state, and federal housing laws that prohibit discrimination based on race, gender, sexual orientation, disability, age, family status, and national origin, the 2011 Analysis of Impediments to Fair Housing Choice Report found that 1/3 of community members felt that they had experienced discrimination in housing transactions. Whereas the governing body does not wish to see the lack of affordable housing in Santa Fe lead to or perpetuate the widening gap between rich and poor, stratification of neighborhoods, or segregation of people. Whereas through this process, community members have identified 5 pillars that are indispensable to Santa Fe to ensure everyone, not just a portion of our population, has a decent home, access to economic opportunities, and the ability to thrive in the community. Accessibility, fairness, equity, ensure both rental and homeownership opportunities for Santa Fe are made accessible to historically marginalized populations and are well integrated socially and geographically. Furthermore, the idea that neighborhood preservation will not be honored if this rezoning is approved is not valid. My property is not within a neighborhood conservation overlay district, NCO. It is not within a defined neighborhood boundary, and distinctive characteristics have not been identified for preservation. It is not reasonable to allow one person or a group of people to arbitrarily define a neighborhood or define characteristics that should or should not be preserved without first adhering to the ordinances pertaining to the adoption of an NCO. The danger that lies in disregarding these ordinances is that biases can occur, allowing individuals to pick and choose projects or people they do or do not want in their neighborhood, which can lead to continued stratification of neighborhoods, segregation of people, inequities, and it does not allow for the ability for all to thrive in Santa Fe. The refusal of opponents to this application to accept and therefore reject the City Council's longstanding policies and long-term policy vision supported by the future land use map should not affect this body's or the governing body's decision to implement its policies by rezoning the property to R2. Respectfully, I ask this commission to use their authority, the longstanding city guiding policies, ordinances, and resolutions to make a mindful, sensitive decision to recommend the approval to the governing body to rezone this property from R1 to R2. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Lucero?
Thank you, Chair. So this property is one of the properties that separates East and West Zia. And as such, well, there's a utility easement, I believe, just to the southeast of this property. And it's become kind of a transit corridor for walkers or bikers, things like that.
On my property in particular, there is not an easement.
Well, I just want to ask, could that transit corridor be reopened perhaps? I know that in the public comment, there were a lot of references to this corridor potentially being opened back up. And I just wanted to kind of bring that up and just hear from you on that particular issue.
Right. No, I would not want to do that. As it is, I'm a single person and I would be living there initially by myself. And I just don't want to have the issue of people walking across my property and then having to deal with people who might not be so nice and might not respect my property and my wishes, as well as the neighbor to my east has had problems with people walking through the property and through the arroyo coming into her property, going into her shed, and causing some issues for her.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll open the matter up for public comment. Anyone here from the public?
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Tom Noble. I live at 2255 Old Arroyo Chamisa Road. And that is within 300 feet of this proposed application. I've lived in the same house there for 45 years. And I know the area pretty well, but I am in no way the longest resident in the area. And in your packets originally, a year ago, you had a couple of letters, and I'd like to just touch on a couple of them. One is by John Tiano, who lives adjoining this property just to the south. And he writes, I am strongly opposed to the proposed rezoning of 2339 Botolph. I was born and raised in Santa Fe. I am 85 years old, and my family has owned property in this area for nearly 100 years, including the exact tract being considered for rezoning. There has to be a point at which this type of development is contained and a boundary is set to preserve, maintain, and set apart the original beauty, integrity, and value of the original neighborhood and the family homes that are traditional to Santa Fe and integral to preserving its much-loved character. Now, I was interested that Mr. Tiano used the word boundary, because one of the things we've been trying to achieve here is to use the arroyo itself as a natural boundary, which it is right now, to some higher densities on the north side and the exclusively R1 areas to the south. So that it's, I think, logical to preserve the character of the neighborhood by using the arroyo as a natural boundary. He also says, to allow the rezoning of 2339 Botolph would open the slippery slope, if I can say that, to all of Arroyo Chamiso and Soli Lomas neighborhoods, losing their rural appeal and historic character. It is imperative that these neighborhoods, of which 2339 Botolph is directly a part of, retain their current zoning and not be rezoned. And I'd like to point out, as I did a year ago, that Soli Lomas has existing protective covenants. Those lots will be 1 acre. Our problem is that on the west side of Old Arroyo Chamisa Road over to Botolph, we are an old neighborhood, as Mr. Tiano mentions, and we did not have the master plan kind of development that Soli Lomas now benefits from. And the irony is that the older areas, which justifiably probably have the most right to be preserved, are the ones without any protection. The other thing he says in his letter is, we have no ill will toward the current property owner and hope she can accomplish her desired goal to build a home for herself and a guest home within the current zoning parameters. I'd also like to read another piece of part of a letter from Jane Chavez, who lives across the street, also within the 300-foot area. She writes, the Jose Chavez family bought our property on Botolph Road, which was 14 acres, where we have lived for over 49 years. I think now she could say 50 safely. It was homesteaded by a family member of hers much before that. And she says, I should probably add that they had 14 acres to begin with, and they did eventually subdivide a bunch of it. It was a little subdivision called the San Sebastian subdivision, and each and every lot in that subdivision was 1 acre or greater. She says, upzoning 2339 Botolph to R2 does not show respect or sensitivity for Botolph Road to the south or the nearby Old Arroyo Chamisa Road area. I feel that Santa Fe should preserve its history and not try to destroy one of the last areas of rural heritage within the city limits. She goes on in conclusion to say, I take exception with the idea that the recent owner of 2339 Botolph Road wants to upzone the R2 for family reasons. The owner of this land has never lived on the property, as in fact only bought the property in 2018. This land does not have a family history for the recent owner and certainly should not be considered upzoning for family reasons. Just to reiterate, when the applicant bought this property in 2018, she paid $155,000. In 2021, she put it on the market for $325,000. And it continued on the market, dropping in price from $295 and $275 and never sold. And then she came up with this idea that she would live there with her family, which may or may not be the case. Turning to this issue of criteria. Originally, the city agreed with the idea that there was no change in the neighborhood character. And I would strongly agree with that. This particular area has not changed. We want to maintain the existing character. That's why we're here. Second of all, there's been an issue of affordability and what's good for the community. And I'd like to say that if you listen to the neighbors, me included, and several others whose letters I'm not quoting, it's pretty clear that the good of the community issue is to leave it the way it is. It's not in the greater good of the community to keep breaking up these parcels and let this piecemeal development keep moving to the south. And as to affordability and affordable housing, that's really a false flag in this situation. We have a very small piece of land which will never be an affordable housing, even if she sold it today for $275,000. This is going to be an upscale rural area, and it will never, ever qualify as affordable housing. And in fact, when it was listed, the MLS listing said, this is a beautiful, rare 1.4 acre with a country feeling, but within the Santa Fe city limits. And that's exactly what we would like to see it remain. Lastly, I'd like to comment on this business of the R2 zoning to the north of the Arroyo. I was actually part of that rezoning because a good family friend owned the property, got into some very difficult circumstances. And so I went along with the R2 zoning because she needed to do that to save herself from bankruptcy and other problems. I realize now, which I did not have the foresight to see then, that this was going to be a problem 20 some years later. And I would urge you not to hang your hats on the fact that it does touch an R2 zoning. That was a mistake, and everyone in the area knows it and deeply regrets it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Noble.
Good, how are you? Nice to see you. We're going to swear you in. I want to swear you in. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
I live with my wife at 2351 Botolph Road, which is the property directly to the south of Mr. and Mrs. Tiano. Just barely or outside of the 300 feet area. I should not be here tonight. I am in what's called Shloshim. It's a 30-day mourning period because my stepdaughter died on September the 12th of a sudden illness, tragic illness. And since then, we've been mourning her loss. And then I found out about this rezoning effort. I've had a lot of communications. When I'm able to leave my wife and know that she's okay for a short period of time with the land use department, particularly on February 14th, February 15th, February 26th, February 27th. It did not involve the substance of merits of a case. The merits are what we would consider the pros and cons, but rather administrative issues. In full disclosure, I sent copies of that correspondence to the chair of the commission simply because it was administrative. And I would hope that that correspondence could be made a part of the record. I'd also like the opportunity to cross-examine, since this is a quasi-judicial proceeding, Ms. Moore, Mr. Escabel, and Mr. Quick about issues that were raised while I'm up here speaking. We are opposed to this rezoning. We were opposed to it in June. Thank you, Mr. Pava, for recognizing that it was June 2022, because the city's report, which contains many errors, on its first page says that the hearing before the council, before the planning commission, was on May the 5th, 2022. That simply is not true. It's a factual error in the planning commission report, as are many other errors. I did not have the time, and in honesty, I did not have the ability to create a PowerPoint right now to be able to show you the area, what the property looks like, and why this rezoning is so ill-advised and inappropriate. What I did do was try as best I could in the limited time that I had to follow the new procedures that the planning department created without public notification, without public notice, and without public input about what residents are supposed to do to provide submissions to the planning commissioners for your review. Initially, like with the Candlelight case, no submissions were even allowed. And then as we pushed as concerned residents, I'm a former city council member, so I'm concerned about these issues since I served from 1992 to 1996. So I was very involved in these matters. And the planning commission said, okay, send the documents to us and we'll make sure the planning commissioners get it. And then there's a new change that says you have to submit things if you go onto the public comment portion through an attachment. The attachments are limited in size, they're limited in quantity. And I tried as best I could, using the skills that I have, given my circumstances, to submit public comments and related attachments. I relied on the city of Santa Fe to be able to present that information in the manner in which I submitted it, public comments with the related attachments, so that it would make some sense. And I see by looking, if you go online now, because I just checked 45 minutes ago, it's totally garbled and makes absolutely no sense. The attachments are not associated in any way whatsoever with the public comments that they were submitted with. It's all a violation of due process of law. This is a quasi-judicial proceeding where due process of law considerations are crucial as this goes further to the city council. So if you were to look and go to, I think it's called item 5G attachments, the first things that appear are actually exhibits to a deposition that anyone but a lawyer would not even know what they are. Like, why is this here? What does this mean? Everything is in like reverse order to a degree. So the first 20 things are exhibits to depositions that I took in an IPRA case about this particular project, because I was concerned that we were not getting proper documentation and proper documents. I took the depositions of Miss Gouroulet, Geraldine Gouroulet, who uploaded things, and there is, in fact, mischaracterizations misstatements. And I would go so far as to say tampering with public records, because if you go online and look at the May 5th, 2022 online record, it would show that there were in fact attachments associated with that meeting, when we know that there was no agenda item that was considered for this property on that day, because this matter was continued from the April 7th to the May 5th, and then from the May 5th to the June 2nd, which Commissioner Pava mentioned. So when someone uploads something after the fact, that's improper. And the reason that I know that that is not appropriate, proper, or legal is they included public comments associated with the May 5th, 2022 meeting. And those public comments were mine. And they weren't even submitted until May 25th, 2022. So how could they possibly be submitted in connection with the May 5th, 2022 meeting? It's impossible. It didn't happen. And so I don't want to belabor the point, particularly now. And particularly with the grief I feel. But it is my public responsibility to ensure open and transparent government. People may not like my methods. People may not like my approach. People may not like what I say. People may not like the fact that I challenge authority. But I do believe in open and transparent government. And I've done that throughout a 50-year career of practicing law, which I just stopped at the end of the year. And so I was able to find, through my quest, through this Inspection of Public Records Act lawsuit, that in May of 2022, there was a report prepared, never disclosed to the planning commissioners, to my knowledge, never disclosed to us, never disclosed at the June 2nd, 2022 meeting that Commissioner Pava mentioned, in which the Planning Commission, in which the Planning Department, signed by the Land Use Director, by the Planning Division, Mr. Cluck, by the Planning Division Manager, Ms. Moore, and by Mr. Esquivel, the case manager, recommended that the Planning Commission deny the request for the rezoning. I found that on October the 6th, 2022, after Judge Matthew, the prior month, had issued what's called a peremptory writ of mandamus directing the city of Santa Fe to provide records that it had not disclosed. Because in the course of that lawsuit, I filed a petition for what's called an alternative writ of mandamus. And I got documents that had been hidden. And I used the word hidden because that's what they were. It was in an 800-page, and I can provide and show you on my computer, massive materials that was sent to me on that day. And I actually took the time to read this stuff. Late at night, I just scroll through it and I read it. And I found it. And it's in the public comments, and it's an attachment that's in that massive materials. That's item 5G, but not in the order in which it was submitted. I do have a copy of it. You know, I think it's in the middle of your materials there. I don't know. It's a lot. I mean, I served on the council. I know how much work you do. I know what those packets consist of. I know how difficult it is to spend nights just reading the materials. I did it for 4 years without stop. So believe me, I get how hard this job is. And I, notwithstanding my comments and criticisms, respect the fact that you've taken it upon yourselves to volunteer and do it. But I know truly how hard it is to take everything in 5 days or 6 days and try and make some sense of it. So in May of 2022, the planning department said, we recommend denial of the rezoning. And then they changed and there was like a gap of communications because they knew I was asking for materials. And so things must have happened, I'm guessing, by phone, because all of a sudden another criteria developed. It's for the advantage, I forget the exact wording, but it's the third criteria of the rezoning criteria, which is that it's supposed to be advantageous for the community as a whole. I mean, so there's the three of them. It was the zoning correct? Has the neighborhood changed? Yeah, zoning's correct. Neighborhood really has not changed. We've been living there since 2008. There's one new house, I think, that got built in that subdivision that was approved in 2004. I wanted to understand, how could they change the zoning from R1 to R2? And they use this euphemism, adjusting boundaries. Well, what does that really mean? And, you know, there's this huge arroyo, the Arroyo de los Chamisos, which comes from the mountains all the way down through, bisects the city, and separates truly the areas to the north, which are slightly more dense, not much, but all the areas to the south are all R1. It's still a semi-rural area. It's one of the few semi-rural areas within the city of Santa Fe. And that's why those of us who live in that area understand it, cherish it, develop it, want to respect our neighbors who want to keep it that way, like the Tiano family, like the Chavez family. And part of what you're supposed to do, which I'm sorry, it's criticism. I accept that this is criticism. At the June meeting, there was no balancing. And if the code requires a balancing, not just that a criteria is met, but that in balancing everything, which means the interests of the residents, the nearby residents, does it make sense? Is it appropriate? Is it proper to do the rezoning? And Mr. Noble has a letter. There's also from Mrs. Rubenstein, who is the neighbor directly to the east. You saw on the map that there was an easement, I wish I just had the ability to have made
And that record, that letter is part of the record.
Oh,
You
thank you.
included that letter.
The concern is that Mrs. Rubenstein, yes, I did include that. Thank you, Ms. Chair Call. Is that she's going to be terribly impacted by this rezoning because her property is directly to the east of this 4-acre tract. So there, under the existing zoning, there would be a house and a guest house. That adds a burden to the easement that she has to get to her property. If you allow this rezoning to go on, and it's been told that they want to split the lot in two, that means that besides the ability to have a house and a guest house under the current zoning, which no one has an objection to, for anyone to live there, regardless of who they are. But you have another opportunity for another house and another guest house that could be up to 1,500 square feet, all impacting Mrs. Rubenstein, who we happened to see yesterday as my wife and I were just trying to heal ourselves and walk our dog. And she was very upset because if anyone would, site inspection would show the road's still muddy. There, there's an incredible burden that is increased on the easement that she has, to be able to get to her property. So you have the surrounding landowners to the south of the Arroyo, all objecting to this rezoning. Not personal, it just doesn't make any sense. And we have the added and compounding factor that the city has not been forthcoming in disclosing public records either to the commission or to me, which is why I had to file a lawsuit, why it is sort of ending, but I pushed it because that's what I do. Hopefully in a professional way, hopefully in a respectful way, but certainly as an advocate. And we now know that what you were presented with last year was not accurate factual information, that there was a letter that continually was dated March 21st, 2022. There's 3 different letters, all with that same date. So they didn't have to file a new rezoning application. So we may have seemed like we were like crybabies, or we were this, or we were that when we showed up. But there was something not appropriate, not proper. And that happened, that we now know about. And so taking the Planning Commission staff report with its mistake on its first page, that it was presented to you, that the meeting was May 5th, is an indicator that there's been a certain level of inattentiveness, I would say sloppiness, and I think inaccurate information presented, because granting this rezoning will completely change the character of that corner. And Commissioner Pava, I apologize for having criticized you in your comparison of Camino Alegre. I respect Camino Alegre. I love Paynes. I think it's Paynes over there. I use it all the time, but it's not Botoff Road, and it's not the same area. And it doesn't have the same character and same qualities and same characteristics. That's why I thought there was a comparison of apples and oranges that didn't make sense. And when the motion was made last year without any balancing thought or discussion or debate, the motion was just made and it was approved. And President Smith, I've criticized the motion that you made to approve the findings of fact, because I think that if you knew all the facts, you would not have done that. And you were new to the commission and this whole process, and you've all become experienced now. And so there's a lot that's involved in this, really. And I think, you know, Commissioner Pava, I don't mean to pick on you, but this is like, you said something that was so important. I guess based upon your experience as a planner, you said you understood that sometimes small rezonings carry with them large issues. And that stayed with me because I think that's true. And I think that that's what this planning commission is confronted with. It's not personal, it's just against the applicant, it's just what's appropriate for the time, for the place, for the space, for the well-being of the community. And so it seems to me this boils down to really that balancing criteria, and I forget the exact, but it's 14.5 C, and I forget that the subsection. But that balance, is it more advantageous to the community that this rezoning be granted or not? I think that that's the criteria, if I am in my I don't want to say garbled sense, but I'm not who I am at the moment. I am who I am, but I'm a little bit more assertive under other circumstances. So we look at the immediate neighborhood, and it is a neighborhood, and the neighbors do know one another and do say hi to one another. And yeah, it's not Sully Lomas. Sully Lomas is great. The people are nice. They're organized. They came before you. They made a compelling case. I helped support them because I walk up that arroyo and I know the damage that will be done. I mean, that's why I supported their efforts. But damage will be done if this rezoning is granted, and it is not to the advantage of the community as is stated within the city's land use code and the rezoning criteria that the commissioners are obligated to follow. So my request to you, and I've left a lot out and I'm not going to get into this, is just to understand that what you got, unfortunately, through the public comment process is planning department really needs to somehow work it through so that it's accurate and so citizens know what's expected of them and can reasonably believe that if you submit a public comment with an attachment, it's going to be there so the planning commissioners at least can make some sense and not think that some nut is just throwing something out there for the sake of doing that. There was a sequence of things that I sent and pictures of the property and explanations, none of which, without a whole lot of time and effort on your part, would you be able to make sense of, I think, because I couldn't make sense of it as I quickly scanned it. So I have a whole lot more to say. Thank you for allowing me to take this time. And I do, I do renew my quest. I know that Ms. Begali at the last meeting said I had no right to cross-examine anybody. I assume unless you changed your mind, I don't. But I make that request for the record.
I understand it's on the record. Yes.
Okay, so I guess I need a ruling one way or another.
Well, we rely on what the city attorney recommends to us, and it's my understanding that they have recommending no cross-examination.
The irony to me is that throughout my career, I've relied on what the chair has said in so many circumstances that I've been involved in as I've practiced law in this city. So I respect that. I understand it. But I do want to acknowledge that I do think that there are due process of law considerations and that they've been violated. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farber, and sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the public that wants to speak?
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Roxanne Yoakum. I live at 119 Tunio Street in Los Alamos. I wasn't planning on coming up to speak today. I'm Shelley's daughter. But just from hearing other people's testimony, I felt like I should need to come and defend my mom. She's a great woman. She's been a single mother for the majority of my life since I was 8 years old, and she has been a great support, and she's very inspirational to me and my siblings. And she's worked very hard. She's retired, worked for the county, put her time in, and she's always been a planner. And part of this property that she wants to divide is for us, her family. And I just don't understand why it's such an issue. We have been, myself, my family, and my ancestors have lived here for hundreds of years. We're native New Mexicans, and I don't really understand the whole process and what the issues are. And I know that staff has found it appropriate, and there would be no impact to the community or, the different services in the area, fire and sewer and all that. I know that I understand it's all approved, so I'm not entirely sure why this has become such an issue for my mother. And again, like I said, she's planning this for us as her family. We're all New Mexican natives, and she just wants to support us and have family nearby. And as she gets older, to be able to care for her and provide for her. So I just wanted to speak on my mother's behalf. So thank you.
Thank you. Dan, I see that your hand, Dan Escobel's hand's raised. Dan, do you have some comments?
Yeah, I'd just like to, first, Mr. Farber, my condolences for your loss. But I'd like to clean up a few things. It was stated earlier that we did recommend denial. We did. Originally, the applicant provided information that didn't correspond with the findings of Chapter 14. And we review the applicant's information and assess it against Chapter 14. If it doesn't comport to those standards, we can't recommend approval. However, we also work with every applicant that comes in. We do this time and time again. And I've made a presentation that identifies how the city DRT team contacts the applicant and advises them of changes that are needed in order to comply with the code. And they either do, or we condition them and force them, or we recommend denial. In this case, the applicant chose to postpone their meeting and rewrite their findings so that they were more in line with chapter 14. It isn't that everybody, especially if you're a single mother, you're not going to be fluent in how to meet regulations for rezonings or general plan or development plan approvals. And it's going to take time for when you have questions and answers for an applicant to understand what it is that they need to write. So what Mr. Farber is expressing is an old memo that was postponed and not used because the applicant chose to move to a different meeting with different criteria responses. And again, that happened for this meeting as the applicant chose not to go with her agent because those responses weren't very well put together, and she chose to do them herself. So that is why you have the responses today, and I apologize for the errors. Unfortunately, we are quite busy in the office, and they are going to happen. So with that, I guess I would just like to bring you back to the focal point of the findings, because that is what we're here to assess, whether the applicant's application, in your eyes, meets those findings necessary to either make a positive recommendation to the governing body or a negative recommendation to the governing body. And that's all I have to say, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Escobar. Mr. Noble, I think, I don't think we're going to let people talk twice. One quick comment. I don't know if it'll set the record straight, though. It's probably a matter.
First of all, I think we need to make clear that Ms. Espinosa had a planner. So the argument that she was a single woman who didn't know how this worked, she had a planner up until she didn't.
Yeah, we understand that. And I think it was the planner that messed up on the notice
All right.
too, so.
So, and the other thing is, everything that Ms. Espinosa's daughter has said is perfectly reasonable and can be achieved with the current zoning. She could have a family compound there. They don't need to subdivide this in order to create the family compound that they're seeking. Thank you.
Any other member from the public present here that wants to speak? If not, is there anyone on Zoom? Maggie?
Chair Clow, I do not see any hands raised on Zoom right now. If anyone is on Zoom that would like to speak, please raise your hand.
Okay, we'll close the public comment portion of this matter, and I'll open it up for questions and comments from the commission. Commissioner Morondo.
Thank you, Chair Clow. Sorry. One is just general comment regarding staff recommendation changing across a submittal. I understand the concern there to find that it almost looks like a smoking gun, as it were. But I can say from my own experience, it's generally just simply not the case and just part of the process that sometimes that happens merely because these applications are complicated, and as applicants, they don't get enough information or don't write an interpretation correctly, and they need to be corrected. And, without knowing exactly why that happened, it may not at all be appropriate for us to see a denial on previous information that isn't actually what the application is based on. The other would be a question I would have for Mr. Escobar, and it would be regarding, I saw basically the applicant is hanging on two criterias, and the second criteria staff didn't see it was met. Now, the third is really where we're hanging this whole case, as I see it. And I would love it if you could speak more to how staff saw that that current zoning enforces the idea of R2.
Dan, that was directed to you.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Commissioner Miranda. I'm not sure I fully get your question. Well, maybe if you can explain a little bit better, because I know that the first two, if you're talking about criteria 1435 CA, there was no mistake in the original zoning. That is an option. Number two, there has been a change in the surrounding area, altering the character of the neighborhood to such an extent to justify the change of the zoning. That can happen in certain areas of the city. And I think for the most part, this commission saw that with Airport Road 334 South Meadows. There has been such a change in that area that they met that criteria. That area is moving fast. That area is changing drastically. But this area, there really hasn't been any change. In fact, I didn't really find much change over the last 40 years when I analyzed it. So you can't really use that particular section as a medium to help you address a change in zoning. It's just not there. So that leaves you with criteria 3 or criteria 1.3, a different use category is more advantageous to the community as articulated in the general plan or other adopted city plans. And I think the applicant really did a good job in explaining why she felt she was more advantageous, considering you're only dealing with one single additional lot for the area. And yes, it will allow a house and guest house, but you're still dealing with only one additional lot, one impact of one lot for that area. So when you listen to the applicant's reasoning within section 3 that she responded to, I think she did a really good job in addressing why there's an advantage. And even if it's only one house, you're still adding to the housing pool for the city of Santa Fe, whether it's market rate or affordable housing, you're still adding to the housing pool. And as I've heard it before from other staff members, we're not, there's no real way of weighting one criteria over another criteria when it comes to the general plan. It's supposed to be loosely interpreted in order to achieve its goals and purposes. If everything was strictly written, I don't think anything could fit in that basket, and we really wouldn't have the city that we have now. So that would be my response to that question, if I understood it correctly.
Thank you, Mr. Escobar. That was what I was asking about, just that you elaborate on how their response to the third criteria was justifiable.
Would you like me to read her response for the record, Madam Chair, members of the commission?
I don't.
No, I think not. We have it. We have it in the materials. I do have a question, and I know the general plan talks about preserving neighborhoods, but it also talks about infill and stopping sprawl. So when you balance the general plan in terms of preserving neighborhoods, how did you balance it in reaching your recommendation? How did you balance the general plan in relationship to preserving neighborhoods and with the need for more infill and stopping sprawl and providing housing? And I know that we have been told that any housing that's provided, even if it's not affordable housing, helps the whole market in relationship to the market crunch, that even when it's a more expensive house. It provides a home for somebody else, and it sort of trickles down and helps open up the market.
Madam Chair, if you look at attachment E5 in your packet, you'll take a look at the area that I was reviewing when I first started looking at this case.
Can you
And
pull
I-
that up for us?
Sure. Okay. Get this. There we go. So this is what I looked at. I just looked at, it had nice boundaries, you know, it's just what I looked at. I went from St. Michael's Drive, St. Francis, Old Pecos Trail, Rodeo Road. I basically looked at the South Central Highway corridor as my package review area. And I itemized all of these areas. I looked at all of the zoning. I counted all of the lots. And that's how I was able to address that, you know, within this area, you have sort of a global density of 2 dwelling units per acre. So it's not really changing any historical pattern of development within this area simply by adding one more lot. In fact, it actually benefits us through the general plan by adding that one more lot and adding another house. And if they were to build another a guest house, again, guest houses have identified as being a part of that affordable living as a rental unit. So I didn't see how one additional lot was going to sacrifice the preservation of this entire area or even this neighborhood, because you're still looking at a pattern of 2 dwelling units per acre.
Any other questions? Commissioner Pava.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Escobar, is the lot in question for this rezoning application actually in the subdivision of Soli Lomas?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Commissioner Pava, no, it is not.
Okay, so therefore, any reference to covenants, which this body doesn't concern itself with, any reference to covenants is a matter among the lot owners and members of Soli Lomas, but this lot is not part of Soli Lomas, so it would not be conditioned upon the old covenants such as they are in Soli Lomas, right?
Not that I'm aware of.
That's good. My other questions, Madam Chair, are maybe more general for county attorney, our city attorney. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Escobar. So obviously we've met Ms. Fagali. We've spent a lot of time on this case back in the spring, and now it's almost spring again, and hope springs eternal. So I would like to ask, with regard to the history on this case, since we last heard it in May and June, and now we are in March, all that has transpired since is very general. Has the applicant and the city now complied with procedures regarding due process as set forth in Chapter 14 and any other city codes or matter of law?
Commissioners, yes, so far as I know, all of the notice requirements have been met, all of the requirements in 14.3.1 as to how to get this case to the planning commission have been met. Everything up to this point has been met.
Okay, thank you. Now, it appears from the well-researched and detailed submittals by Mr. Farber that we've just read this last couple of days, the 24 pages and then some. We're now informed about this lawsuit that happened with Mr. Farber and the city. I think there was a lawsuit, if I'm not a lawyer, but that's what seems to have happened. Does the outcome of that lawsuit have any bearing on the decision we are now asked to make on the matters of fact of this application for zone change?
Commissioners, no, it does not. It was unrelated. Essentially, it was a case about public records. It was not about the merits of this case in any way.
Thank you. There's a lot in there as also as an advocate for government transparency that concerns me, but I don't think it really relates to the specifics of this change or request from R1 to R2 at this point. Okay, subsequently. Thank you. And that's what I have for staff. And I just want for the record to acknowledge Mr. Farber's pain. May you be comforted among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem.
Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll do it.
Commissioner Pava,
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. My magic box here. Give it to me. My battery died. Thank you, Madam Chair. In the matter of the case 2022-4942, 2339 Bottoff Road rezoning, would motion that the planning commission should recommend that the governing body approve case 2022-4942. Do we need to cite the conditions?
you can just say subject to.
Subject to the staff, the conditions of approval and the criteria cited in the staff report regarding section 14-3.5C, criterias 3 and I believe 4, 5, and 6.
Second.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Lucero,
Yes.
Commissioner Morondo,
Yes.
Commissioner Pava.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Okay, moving on, are there any other staff communications other than earlier one we heard?
Madam Chair, thank you. None at this time.
Thank you. And any matters from the commission? Commissioner Pava.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Next week, I will be in Denver at the University of Denver's Rocky Mountain Land Use Institute. I will endeavor to bring back any information. There's a lot of good stuff they're presenting for the first time in 3 years, live and in person. Some really amazing people who will speak. If you look at the program and you want anything, let me know. I'll make sure I get it for you. It should be an amazing program. There's a lot about housing affordability, so I'm hoping we bring back some new, fresh materials for my colleagues here on the commission.
Anything else? If not, we'll adjourn.